Hi, and welcome to Jules Voto's Photo Focus. The focus in this video will be on answering some of the questions that were asked in the comment section of my video from a few weeks ago titled, Ask a Question, Win a 35mm camera and 58mm 1.4 lens. So the first question is from Guy. He spells his name G-U-I, so I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And the question was, how did I get into Nikon cameras and lenses? Well, I first started getting interested in photography in 1970. And in 1971, I bought my first 35mm single lens reflex camera, a Pentax H1A with a 55mm 2.0 lens. Camera didn't have a meter. It was a basic camera, but it was great to learn on. And about a year later, I picked up a Pentax Spotmatic, which did have a built-in meter. Great camera, great lenses, very well made, but there were two things I wasn't crazy about with that camera. One was the meter was through the lens, full area averaging, which was fine. However, to use the meter, the lens had to be stopped down to the working aperture. So there was a little switch on the side of the lens mount. You move that switch into the on position, and it stopped the lens down. So if you were shooting outdoors on a sunny day and you were at f8 or f11 or f16, the view through the viewfinder got very dark. You took your meter reading, centered the needle, pressed the switch down, and then the lens opened up. Also the screw mount, so that was difficult. That was really, you know, it was kind of annoying that you had to do that. It was also slow, having to stop the lens down using that switch every time you wanted to take a meter reading. And also the screw mount lenses. So it was kind of slow to change lenses. So I had subscribed to modern and popular photography back then, probably in 1970. And of course I was always reading about Nikon. You know, all the pros use Nikon. And of course I wanted a Nikon. I also want a Ferrari, but don't think that'll ever happen. But anyway, so in 1972, in late 1972, I bought a Nikon FTN with a 50mm 1.4 lens. It had full aperture metering, a bayonet lens mount, mirror lockup, and it was just a great camera. And I was very happy to get into the Nikon system. Plus, I knew I could really grow with the Nikon system, eventually moving up to a Nikon F and possibly a motor drive, and all the great accessories that were available for Nikon. So, and I progressed through the years. At that time, I never owned an F2, but I did own an F3, an F4, and so forth, eventually moving into digital, and then eventually into the Nikon mirrorless system. So one of the great things about Nikon is they tried not to make their older lenses obsolete. When they went from the standard F mount to AI lenses, they offered an upgrade that you could send the lens to Nikon and have your lenses modified to AI. I mean, some of those lenses, those manual focus lenses from the 60s, I could still use on my Nikon Z cameras. So that's one of the great things about Nikon. You know, lenses that were made in 1960, 1959, 1960, can still be used on today's mirrorless cameras. So, okay, so the next question is from Tom, and he asked, how many parts are there in a Nikon F? So I took one of my old Nikon Fs and I took it apart and I counted all the pieces, but however, when I put it back together, I have a few extra pieces. Seems to still work okay, but no, seriously, I did not take the camera apart. I wouldn't know how to begin. But I did look it up. And actually in the Nikon Handbook of Photography by Cooper and Abbott, it was published in 1968, and it states in there that there are 918 parts in a Nikon F. Okay, so Andreo asked the question, and this is a long question, I'll answer part of it. What are your rarest, quirkiest, and favorite Nikon cameras or accessories? And what breakthrough innovations did Nikon achieve, and how did the innovation stand the test of time? Wow. Okay, so rarest, well, I have a Nikon F red dot. I don't know that it's that rare. The red dot was introduced around the time that the Nikon Photomic T Finder first came out in 1965. And camera bodies with a red dot in front of the serial number will take that finder, you'll be able to mount that finder without any modification. Older bodies needed to be modified by Nikon. So, I mean, there weren't that many made. I don't know the exact number, but I don't know. Can you call that rare? The other thing that may be considered a little bit rare is the 5.8 centimeter 1.4. That's equivalent to 58 millimeter. That was Nikon's first 1.4 lens, which was introduced the same year as the F in 1959. It was only manufactured for 3 years. Quirkiest, I guess the Nikon F is a little quirky with a few things. One is the mirror lockup, where you need to waste a frame in order to lock up the mirror. And the other is the removable back. Not very convenient, especially if you're in a crowd. You know, where do you put the back? So I guess they're the quirkiest things. Maybe some people might say the F with the shutter releases towards the back of the camera, but that really never bothered me. What breakthrough innovations? Well, the Nikon F, when it was introduced, really wasn't a breakthrough camera. I mean, it had an instant return mirror. Other cameras had instant return mirrors. It had fully automatic lenses, which means they stayed at full aperture until the moment of exposure, but other cameras had that. It took a motor drive. Now, that was kind of unique for a 35 millimeter SLR. There was a company called Robot that made wind-up film advance cameras. It was like a clockwork system, and you would wind it up, and then after you release the shutter, the film would advance to the next frame. And Nikon did have motor drive for their rangefinder, I believe for the SP. So, but if you want to say innovative, I guess the F was overall because it combined all these things. It was a full system camera. It had interchangeable finders, but I believe the Exacta did as well, which was introduced in 1936, which was really the first successful 35 millimeter single lens reflex camera. You know, the camera took motor drives. The F took interchangeable focusing screens and a ton of accessories, as well as a very, over the years, became a very full lens line for, you know, lenses for almost every need, from fisheye to, they had a 1,000 millimeter mirror lens, as well as, I believe, a 1,200 millimeter lens as well. So also there was a 2,000 millimeter lens. I'm not sure when that came out. I guess probably mid to late 60s. Okay. Last question for this video is Georgios asked, can you compare the 50 millimeter 1.4 to the 50 millimeter 1.2? Well, unfortunately, Giorgio, I can't. I never owned the 50 1.2. I do know that the 50 1.2 is considered to be a better lens than the previous 55 millimeter 1.2. And until recently, you could buy that lens new. I know B&H Photo had several of the AIS lenses that were available new. You still may be able to find one. I think it was the 24-2.8, the 35 1.4, the 50 1.4, the 50 1.2, and I think there was a macro lens in there. I think it was the 105 2.8 AIS. So yeah, if I ever get my hands on one of those 50 1.2s, I would be curious to test it and see how it compares to the 50 millimeter 1.4. Okay, so that's it for this video. Remember, the deadline to ask a question in my Ask a Question, Win a Camera and Lens video is September 30th, 2021. So get your questions in. Once it gets past the 30th, I will then take all those names of the people who asked the question. I will put them in a hat and pull out a winner. So the winner will receive a Minolta SRT 101 camera with a 58mm 1.4 MC Rocore lens, Minolta wide camera strap, as well as an instruction manual. Camera's in great shape. It's used, so there's some marks on it. Shutter speeds sound fine. Again, to enter, just watch my video. There's a link to it in the description below, and the video is called Ask a Question, Win a Camera and a 58mm 1.4 lens. So get those questions in. I will, over the next few weeks, answer all those questions in a few additional videos. Okay, so thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And look for a new video every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Thank you.